Wishing you all a very, very good evening. And it is indeed a matter of great pride and privilege for me here at IFS to be welcoming you all to the eighth episode of the Genius Junction quiz. Um, what started as a small thought has become a movement. And today we are really fortunate to have our Vice President, none other than Dr. Ritu Khanna, and our SIG convener, Dr. Bharati, with us. And they would be taking us through thicks and thins of the role of sonography in ART. And as we have put it, we would be having two talks by both these stalwarts, and this would be followed by a quiz on Kahoot by none other than Dr. Parul, who is actually a wizard when it comes to quizzing. So, without any further ado, I think I would be happy to welcome Dr. Ritu Khanna. For Dr. Ritu Khanna, ma'am, will you be happy to talk first, or does Dr. Bharati talk first?
Yeah, I'll start.
Yeah.
I'll
So,
start
Doctor,
and thank you.
we all know Dr. Ritu Khanna. She is the vice president, and she has been an iconic figure in the entire India, not just the North. And it's really a pleasure to hear from you, ma'am. And thank you so much for agreeing to be with us on this venture, despite your very,
Yeah.
very hectic schedules, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Manchusha, who's the national coordinator for, and she's a mentor basically for the quiz. And Parul is, of course, here and for the zonal coordinator for the Delhi NCR. And it's so great to have your great team, Padmaja, Divya, Sajar, then Mona and Shikha. I think a fantastic team and a pleasure and a privilege for me to have convener SIG, Dr. Bharti Jan, madam, who's always there as a support. So with this, I think I'll do my share, and I'll start with my presentation on tracking, follicular tracking and ovulation induction. I hope you can see my screen over here. Yes? Padil, you can see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
Okay, so it's follicular tracking and ovulation induction. Follicular dynamics is all about something with morphology and a vascular response of the ovaries and the uterus to hormonal changes which occur during the menstrual cycle. Therefore, our understanding and interpretation of cycle monitoring can improve significantly if we really have a very short view of what is really exactly happening in the menstrual cycle. We need to keep this chart right in front of our eyes to have our FSH, LS levels, the dominance, the selection, whenever it's occurring, and of course, the corpus luteum with us. Now, to assess the purpose of this follicular tracking is you can get an optimum follicular endometrial maturity, and thereby you're going to plan your triggers, your IVFs, your IUIs, whatever you're doing. So, monitoring is done by hormonal assays, by combination of hormonal or B mode of ultrasound, but I think we all do ultrasounds now, and add with our color Dopplers, which adds an insight because it plays a very, very crucial role in cycle monitoring. It's a delicately balanced orchestra of hormones of the reproductive system, which are going to reflect as the vascular changes and later the morphological changes taking place in the uterus and ovaries. And basically, when do we start a first scan? We always prefer to do it at the second and the third day of the menstrual cycle, and that's called as a baseline scan. And the time is the ovaries are really silent. There's no active follicle, no active corpus luteum, and all the follicles are, of course, less than 8 to 9 millimeters. Secondary enteral follicles, maybe even 2 millimeters, would be seen as the first follicular structure that may be visualized. And of course, we know the systemic process for counting our enteral follicles, all between 2 to 9 millimeters, which gives us an enteral follicle count. The simultaneous, we just look at the peep into the endometrium and we see that the endomyometrial junction as seen over here is quite intact. A normal shape of the endometrium, there's no vascularity at all. And the reason is it's a very, very thin endometrium, which should be at this point because of the low estrogenic state. Why did we do this baseline scan was because we wanted to assess or plan our stimulation protocols. And we thought if it's less than 10, maybe we do not get a very good response. If it's more than 10, we get a normal response. If it's more than 23, there may be a risk of OHSS. So the stimulation protocols are decided by looking at the ovarian reserve. Reserve means the likely number of follicles that may develop or the likely number of OR that could be retrieved in this patient. And that's depicted by an AFC and the ovarian volume. And the response is the approximate doses that we would require to produce one mature follicle. And how do we do it is we put on a color Doppler and look at the intra-ovarian flow. So the AFC, the ovarian volume, the ovarian bar color Doppler did not significantly change after you've given a treatment with even a downregulation with GnRH agonist is done. Antral follicle count and the volumes show significant correlation with your AMH, which is done. And it is interesting to know that if you measure the ovarian stroma flow in early follicular rays, it's going to affect, it's going to reflect as your ovarian response in the IVF treatment over here. So now in the follicular dynamics, before day 5 of the cycle, the selection of the dominant follicle occurs. Now what happens between day 5 and 7? This dominance becomes apparent to us as we look into this figure with the day 4 and then you go into the day 7 where you're able to see, yes, this follicle is going into dominance. So when this dominant follicle is growing, it simultaneously reduces all the other follicles which are present in the surrounding. And it's also interesting to know that it is often the largest follicle which may not be the dominant follicle also. But then we have to monitor this follicular dynamics. So we look at it at the rate of the growth of the follicle. The rate as high as more than 2.3 millimeters per day. The wall thickness you look at, and you look at the internal echogenicity. Now, 7 days prior to ovulation, you find that the size is increasing and simultaneously there's increase in the granulosa cell thickness. And why it is important to look at it is because your granulosa cell thickness is related to the health and the growth of the follicle. And so we always look at it. Also, more than 12 millimeter the follicle which has picked up is now going to be your dominant follicle and growing at a rate of 2 to 3 millimeters per day and ovulation at around 18 to 24, depending on what you're using. You're using your oral forms or you're using your injectable. If your oral forms, you can go up to 22, 24 millimeters. Your injectables, you go up to 17 millimeters or so. Cumulus like shadow 36 hours prior and a sonolucent halo 24 hours prior to the ovulation, separating and folding of the follicle lining 6 to 10 hours prior to ovulation. So we just need to keep caring for all these signs that we see. And we have an increase in the perifollicular vascularity of the dominant follicle in the theca layer starts developing as early as 8th day. So if you put your color Dopplers before that, you're not going to see any perifollicular vascularity because your levels are still going to rise of the estrogen. And what happens to the perifollicular vascularity, which you keep monitoring, just starts, this perifollicular RI starts to fall 2 days before the ovulation. And it's going to reach a nadir at ovulation and still remain low for 4 days and then gradually rise, reaching 0.5 in the mid-luteal phase. So when you look at follicular parameters and you want to say, yes, this is a good follicle, it's going to give me a good retrieval. So you look at the size. Apart from it, you put a perifollicular vascularization, and that was covered around 3/4 of the follicle area. And your perifollicular IRI should be between 0.4 to 0.548. Your follicular PSV should be more than 10 centimeters per second. Now, what you did was when you looked at the diameter that told you your maturity and your vascularization perifollicular predicted the quality of oocyte at retrieval. You can even put in your points as grades. What are you seeing as a perifollicular vascularity? Grade 1 is just covering less than 25%. Grade 2 is less than 50. Grade 3 is less than 75. And grade 4 is more than 75. Now, the follicles which will have a very uniform perifollicular vascular network, they are more likely to produce a good pregnancy. So follicular RI and PSV are more important in decision making rather than only taking into consideration the follicular size. Now, when your PSV is rising and your PSV is 10 centimeters per second, that's a time where the LH surge is starting under the effect of LH, and your perifollicular PSV keeps on rising. And then you're going to give an HCG. Now, the HCG has got an important role because it's going to induce the influx of blood into the follicles. And the follicular PSV may sometimes go very high as 45 centimeter, but that means that there's just an hour left for the ovulation to occur. Now, if you monitor the day 12, 13, 14, you look at the sizes, it's going on increasing. You look at the RI, it's going on decreasing. And of course, your PSV goes on increasing. So when you get a rising PSV, you get a steady low RI. That means that your follicle is very close to rupture. Now, the increasing PSI starts 29 hours before your ovulation, and it's going to continue for 72 hours after ovulation, and that's because of the penetration of the vessels into the granulosa cell. So you do a good pre-ovulatory scan, and you also look at the endometrium simultaneously. The ovarian flow correlates well with the oocyte recovery rates, and hence may be useful in determining the appropriate time when you're going to administer your HCG. But you need to look at your Doppler color flows before the HCG. On the day of HCG, if cumulus-like echoes are not seen in all the three planes, it's less likely to be a mature follicle. What happens when the follicle ruptures? You get a corpus luteum. Even at the time of a corpus luteum, you have your RIs, which are going to be low, I said, for around 4 days. And after that, the RI is going to rise in the mid-luteal phase. So how does it help you? If your follicle is not rupturing, so then your RI values will not be lower or less than 0.5. They'll remain high. And that's how to find out that, yes, this follicle may be a luteinized unruptured follicle. And also when you're looking at a perifollicular phase, the LH peak values go to 0.58, and your mid-luteal also go to 0.58 later, and the late luteal is this. So after 4 days, they started rising, and that's how you can detect your luteal phase deficiencies. So a clear correlation between RI of corpus luteum and the plasma progesterone levels have been seen in natural cycle. Therefore, the RI of corpus luteum can be used as adjunct to the plasma progesterone assay as an index of luteal function. Number of scans will depend upon the response of a patient. HC is delayed till you get a maturation of the follicle, and decreased quality of oocytes when the follicle goes more than 24 millimeters, but there is no difference of quality of oocytes from the follicles between 18 to 22 millimeters in size. So ultrasound plays a very important role to assess the follicular maturity and understanding also the endometrial receptivity to plan your trigger. And Doppler helps you more to understand the hormonal changes occurring during the menstrual cycle, and thereby you're going to plan your treatment. So clarity is the reality of imaging. And thank you so much for a very patient hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Ritu ma'am, for such a comprehensive and such a amazing talk. And it's very crisp and very up to the point and
Yeah.
within the time.
Thank
And
you. Thank
it's
you.
a great learning. Ma'am, one question I want to ask you, when you feel when you consider canceling the cycle when suppose we are doing a IUI,
Yeah.
how many number of follicles you consider canceling? We should cancel this cycle.
Anything more than 3 has to be either converted or cancelled and counsel the patient.
More than 3. Okay,
Yeah,
ma'am.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually,
Thank you
ma'am's
so
talk was so crisp and so to the point, and
Yeah.
so much to learn from ma'am. I mean, how could she put so many things into such a small, concise time frame? I mean, amazing, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us. Thank you.
Thank-
Parul, would you be happy to invite Dr. Bharati, ma'am?
Yeah, can I get a okay,
We all know Bharati, ma'am. Yeah.
yeah, we all know Dr. Bharti ma'am. Please, I want to invite Dr. Bharti Jain ma'am for the next talk, and it's on
I was going to talk on the endometrium in ART,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
ma'am is the convener of SIG on ultrasound in ART. This
Yeah,
thing.
it's on evaluation of
So we
endometrium in
really want
ART.
to learn a lot. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Uh, Himanshu?
Ma'am?
Please unmute Dr. Bharti ma'am.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. At the outset, I would congratulate Team Quiz Junction for organizing this nice webinar series on evaluation of endometrium, follicles, and everything possible in ART. And as a convener of special interest group in ultrasound, I welcome all the speakers and the delegates on this dedicated webinar on evaluation of ultrasound in ART. You've heard very nice talk of evaluation of follicle, and I will be speaking on how to evaluate the endometrium. See what is a conducive endometrium for inducing a pregnancy by the non-invasive method, that is the ultrasound. My slide is not moving on. Just give me a moment.
Ma'am, actually, we are not able to see your screen.
Oh, can you see my screen?
No, ma'am. It's just desktop showing.
Okay, just give me some minute to fix it up.
Yes, ma'am.
Is
We
my
can see it now.
slide seen?
Yes.
Are my slides seen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can see.
Okay. See, just as a farmer not only selects the right seed, but also he prepares the soil. So also to get a pregnancy, you need a synchronized endometrium in which there is a cyclical march of hatching, opposition, adhesion, and invasion. So in my talk today, I will be talking why to evaluate the endometrium, how to evaluate, and what to evaluate in the endometrium. See, you see this graph. What do we see? We see 100 recruited cycles, more than 82% eggs retrieval, and around 80% transfers. But what about the pregnancies? We have around 38% of pregnancies and around 36% of live births. So clearly, implantation is the rate limiting step in ART. Whatever we do, whatever the advances, but there will remain a haziness about the endometrium. And let us see what does the literature say. See, we see around more than 7,000 studies in PubMed about the less than 500. So even PubMed doesn't address as to why there is a bottleneck into the implantation process. Now, how do we assess the endometrium? See, my slide has got two parts. One half deals with the invasive modalities and the second half, the non-invasive. Needless to say, the invasive modalities, even though they are gold standards in their respective field, but we cannot do it in the treatment cycle. Hysteroscopy, best used to assess focal lesions, especially the subtle focal lesions, and chronic endometritis is the gold standard. It not only diagnoses with 100% specificity, but it also corrects, but cannot be done in the treatment cycle. And literature is full of debates as to whether hysteroscopy should be done for all or after IVF failure. Then ERA, all the clinicians know that it assesses the window of implantation very clearly. But then, can it be done for all? No. There are specific limitations, and for that, it is done in select cases. At our center, if we assess around 100 cycles, maybe 2 to 3, we have seen the altered window period of implantation. No pods are potential, but then again invasive, so not recommended in the treatment cycle. So what do the clinicians use? Ultrasound is the answer, especially after the innovation of high frequency TVS probes, along with the other improvements like speckle reduction, compound imaging. And what do you need for your ultrasound machine? What are the mandatory things? It should be a 2D TVS, 2D ultrasound machine with a high resolution TVS probe and should have a good color Doppler. Then I will be telling the specific uses of 3D ultrasound. 3D is useful, but not in all. So you can do away with 3D in most of your practices. Needless to say, there are some advantages of 3D in select cases. And sonohysteroscopy comes in aid in these cases. See, at our center for 15 years, because we had an endoscopy unit also, all the money was pumping into the endoscopy equipment. So, management is not changing much. This was an RCT of 292 patients in which we had detectable ultrasound uterine abnormalities only in 45% cases. And out of these 45 cases, polyps were the maximum. Now, to assess the implantation potential, you have to assess the hatching and opposition by placing the maximum point of implantation. For adhesion, you have to assess the hormonal changes, and for invasion, you have to see the focal lesions. Maximum implant of implantation is being done while you're placing the embryo around 1.5 roughly centimeters from the fundus. Now but even on literature search, the current practice in vogue is 2D transfers. This was a study at our center where we modified. What we did is we evaluated the maximum point of implantation on a pre-treatment cycle. We took two tangential lines, two lines which were from the opening of the fallopian tubes, and where they intersected, we measured it from the fundus and then we planted. What we found was that there was a benefit of implantation. So as of our practice, we are doing this 3D evaluation in patients with corrected Asherman syndrome. Now, all of you as residents are familiar with these dynamics graphs, which show the changing estrogen, progesterone, and LH levels. Simple thing, picture of what is the hormonal milieu to which the endometrium is being subjected. You see the day 2 scan. You know there is a low E2 and low progesterone level, and for this, the endometrium is thin and there are no dominant follicles. In the middle slide, you see a dominant follicular cyst. So this is a high estrogenic state, and the next one shows a corpus luteum. So these cycles cannot be used for FET cycles, and they have to be down-regulated for the next cycle. Now see, endometrium is a functional assay. Evaluating the morphometric changes of the endometrium reflects the functional changes to which the endometrium responds to the cyclical levels of estrogen and progesterone. Initially on day 2, day 3, you see a thin layer of endometrium in thickness. Initially, it is a proliferative stage where it changes from type A, B, and C. That is, initially, it's a hyperechoic outer edge. Then an intermediate is hypoechoic. Then the intermediate layer is hypoechoic, is isoechoic. And then finally, it becomes a homogeneously hypoechoic region with blunted of outer junction. Then near the periovulatory phase, what happens is, because of LH, there is a minimal rise in progesterone. So the outer endometrial layer becomes fluffy. And then with the rise of progesterone subsequent to a corpus luteum, it changes to type C. So what do we assess in endometrium? We assess the thickness of the endometrium. We assess the morphology on grayscale. The optimum thickness, not less than 7 and not more than 13. A thicker endometrium does not carry a linear increased chance of pregnancy. And the morphology near implantation should be type B. Now, this is one specific place where you assess the 3D volume, because your 3D machines can measure. And in our case, you need not measure in the previous slides because you see a very good lining. But when you have Asherman syndrome, I find this useful. And a suboptimal, and when you have suboptimal endometrial growth and you have a suboptimal endometrial volume, then you can counsel on the basis of 3D volume, which can be an additional parameter for counseling before you decide to cancel, postpone, or revert to surrogacy. Now, Doppler is important because what happens with the right change in estrogen level? There is a fall of the uterine artery RI, and with that, its branches, spiral arteries. Also, when we have the peak estrogen level, what we see is we do the Doppler flow, and then we see a good endometrium receptive one is which is having flow in zone 3 and 4. That is, it reaches the central part and beyond the outer lining. And additionally, you can see the RI of these endometrial vessels. A conducive endometrium is one in which the RI of the spiral vessels is something to the tune of 0.5, and more than 0.7 is an endometrium which will not respond. Also, in PCO ovaries, what do we see? A high androgen level. And high androgen corresponds to a high uterine artery RI. So when you see a PCO patients, you have frequent cases of abortions, and that is due to this high RI of the uterine artery. Now, this was a case which was operated in our center. This was grade 4 Asherman, and it was treated with estrogen, and it was an evaluation. You see, with great difficulty, the endometrium is only 6 mm. Then this is another case in which you see a good follicle. So estrogen is there in the body. We know a good follicle releases around 200 to 250, 200 to 300 picogram of estrogen. But when you have a good follicle and the endometrial thickness of only 0.55, so where does the problem lie? It may be their endometrial receptors are not developed probably due to endometritis or some other reason. So these are the cases in which you need to put your scope. Now I have told you three parameters. One is the morphology, then the type of endometrium and the flow. So every time it's not a perfect scene. So how big is the problem and which parameter is more important? This was a study at our center in which we said, like when the ET was less than 7 mm, we had minimum number of pregnancies. That is less than somewhere around 5%. With a poor pattern, it rose a bit higher, that is around 8 or 9%. And when we had a ET more than 13 mm, again, the pregnancy really poor flow also, the flow was around 24%. So these suboptimal cases, when they had one or two of the confounding factors, the total pregnancies was somewhere around 41%, whereas when we had favorable variables, the pregnancy rate was 50%. So if I have to consider all the variables, I do not cancel it on one variable, but we have to keep in mind what are the prognosticating factors between the type, flow, and pattern. Now, focal lesions are important, and for this reason, maybe 3D scores. But in case you don't have a 3D machine, we find that this was a study by Abulgar in which he said that if you do sonohistography, a simple technique which you can do in your OPD, then you do not gain much in terms of sensitivity and specificity in terms of 3D evaluation or 3D sonosalpingography. So if you have a 2D machine, you can easily do sonosalpingography to increase your specificity of pickup prior to operating a patient. Now, why is sonohistography better than TVS? In SIS, you're evaluating a single layer of endometrium. So if you have these two slides, they're very subtle lesions. Now, prior to operating, you would need more diagnostic confidence. So you evaluate in the proliferative phase when there is no bleeding. And the most common pathology you see is a polyp, which is an intraluminal thing. It has the echogenicity similar to that of the endometrium. It distends the endometrium. And we see the initial 3 slides, very big polyps, you don't need 3D or sono. But if you see the last slide on the bottom, then there may be a doubt of polyp. So you distend the cavity, and what you see, you can nicely see the polyp. The last slide shows 3 polyps. Then the first slide shows 2 polyps. So definitely sono has an edge over simple TV. Yes. Now, some submucosal neomamas do not need 3D scans, but mucosal and the percentage of disturbance of the endometrial myometrial junction. Then in some cases, select cases, sono can help. For example, this particular the slide shows you have a doubt whether it's intraluminal or submucosal, but when you see the sonohistography, you see the disturbed endometrial myometrial interface, and you see lesion which is indenting the cavity, and this can, because the percentage protrusion is more than 75%, you can correct it by hysteroscopic measure. Now, adhesions again on TVS 2D are seen as either disruption of the endometrial myometrial interface, you see echogenic lines, but on sonohistography, you see thin floating bands or non-distensibility. Like the first was a 2D thing, but once we distended, we saw that there was a non-distension of the endometrial cavity in the middle. Then thin flaps of thin scars and mobile strands, which could be missed on 2D in the third upper slide. Then again, a non-disturbance of the endometrium in the first lower slide. Again, a thick scar. So you see the percentage of clarity, and you know what level of adhesiolysis you have to do on hysteroscopy. To a simple technique can give you more confidence. A scar as an echogenic area in otherwise normally in fundus, difficult to see on 2D, but very nicely elucidated on sonohistography. So my take-home message is the role of endometrium is indispensable, especially in evaluating the endometrium in the treatment cycles. TVS, a routine diagnostic protocol for screening prior to recruiting. Hysteroscopy is the gold standard, but then should it be a routine or in select cases? ERA, you have to consider limitations. 3D, very good for certain things, but you can choose. And in case you don't have a 3D machine, you can do sonohistography. And even Escher recommends its use in pre-ART cases of recurrent implantation failure, evaluation of endometrial lesions and uterine marker implantation failure. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful write-up of the entire endometrial dilemmas, if I may call them, ma'am. You have so beautifully told us that what we practically need to master is the art of TVS, including a saline infusion sonography. And that means practically we are doing away with the hysteroscopy and the laparoscopy as a starting investigation in these cases. Am I right, ma'am? Hello, ma'am. Bharti, ma'am, am I audible?
Ma'am, I have a
Yeah, you
signal
can at
problem.
least screen your cases, no?
So even HSG seems
I
to
mean,
be
do away with the negative, like
at what stage, ma'am, would you say that we go ahead with the
see, we
diagnostic?
had around 55. Yeah, am I?
Ma'am, there's a signal problem at your side.
I'm not able to hear.
Parul, do we have any questions in the chat box?
No, no,
No?
no.
Is there anything which you would like to discuss with ma'am?
Not able.
I can
Okay,
see a
one
question
question.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. Should I read?
Yeah, of course.
Can can ma'am clear it with the pictures, grades of endometrium, grade A, B, C, if possible? Grades of endometrium.
Ma'am will have to go back to her PowerPoint and show us some things. Ma'am, will you be happy to do that for us? I'm sure all of us here want to learn that. Bharti, ma'am, are we audible to you, ma'am?
Okay. Yeah, see. Yeah. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, yeah, yes, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, see, as you said, see, we had a pilot study in which we said out of 100 cases for hysteroscopy, 55% were normal. So we can minimize that percentage if we do a sonohistography in case of doubt, especially for adhesions.
Ma'am, one
Was
of
there any other
the
question?
Ma'am, one of the delegates here wants you to show pictures of grade A, B, and C of endometrium. If you could go back to your PPT images and show us that
Sure.
again, ma'am. We would all benefit from that show.
Unfortunately, I have slides of only proliferative endometrium. And have the three types of proliferative endometrium, but it's very simple. You see the outer interface of the endometrium and myometrium. If it is distinct, but it is hypoechoic, then it is A. But if it is distinct and anechoic, then it is grade B. When it is indistinct and isoechoic to the myometrium, it is grade C. These are all the three types of proliferative endometrium. When it becomes periovulatory, then the outer layer starts becoming fluffy and then it becomes a triple layer endometrium. With the secretory phase, the entire thing becomes hyperechoic. And you compare the echoes with that of a myometrium and the endometrium as to evaluate the subjectiveness of the endometrial echogenicity.
Okay, ma'am. Fine.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank you. It's
Thank you.
really a pleasure listening and learning from you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
I would now like to move on to the next part of today's event, and that is the quiz on Kahoot. So, Dr. Parul, all of us are very familiar with her, and she represents the Delhi NCR zone of the quiz committee. Plus, she is a very, very active member of our society. She's a very renowned reproductive medicine practitioner as well. She works in Gurgaon. And over to you, Parul, for the Kahoot quiz.
Thank you, Dr. Manjusha, for the kind words. So let's start with the quiz. That is the most, I think, fun part of this event. Now we first have to download the Kahoot and then join it. And this is the PIN number. This is 792792. We are waiting for the participants to enter. Yeah, they started entering. Yeah. So PIN number is 792792. As you know, all know it's a fun part of this event, and you have to be very accurate, and the speed is the most important thing. Please enter by a mobile number. Sana and Milan. Sana, please enter with your mobile number.
There's a query from Dr. Neha Singh. Dr. Neha, you have to have Kahoot on your mobile, and then you put the pin. Dr. Padmaja has already given you the answer. Hi, Padmaja.
Hi, Dr. Padmaja. Yeah.
No.
Sana, you also enter by your mobile number, please. Yes. Akila, please enter with your mobile number. Akila, please enter with your mobile number. Neha, you also have to enter with your mobile number. Yeah, Neha. Charlie, please enter with your mobile number. Archana, you also have to enter with your mobile number. PIN number is 792792. Archana and Akira, please enter with your mobile number. Yeah. Only Archana left. Akila, yeah. Akila, you. Dr. Akila, please enter with your mobile number. Dr. Neha, please enter with your mobile number.
Dr. Akila is having some concerns and she's not able to enter.
Okay.
Akila, do you have Kahoot on your device? Please open the Kahoot app and then you enter this number 792792. Dr. Neha also is having some concerns. Once you are in the Kahoot, then it will ask you for a PIN for the nickname. So for the nickname, you have to enter your mobile number instead of your names, because that makes it easier for us to communicate with you later. You know, we'll be needing to call you girls, the winners for the finale, and unless we have your numbers, it will be difficult for us to reach out to you.
Yeah, I think
Dr. Rupa, please enter
Neha
with your
and
mobile number.
Akila have got that. Dr.
Yeah.
Rupa,
Dr.
I think,
Rupa.
just exit and then again join.
Dr. Rupa, please enter with your mobile number.
Dr. Archana also is having difficulties. Archana, when you open the Kahoot app, it will ask you for the nickname. You change the nickname to your mobile number.
So if you go back, you can do that. Or 40.
Dr. Rupa.
Dr. Rupa and Dr. Archana. Yeah. Now Dr. Rupa
Archana.
left. Yeah.
Archana also needs to change. Oh, Neha,
Dr.
you're back with
Neha
the... No, for the nickname, Neha, you have to enter your mobile number. That is the only trick.
Archana and Neha are having some issues. No worries, yeah, it is nothing difficult. Just get onto it.
Okay. Now Dr. Neha left.
Padmaja, if she leaves and she joins again, will that help us?
I think so. I will just check
Dr.
what is...
Kavita, please enter with your mobile number.
बच्चे आपको निकनेम में मोबाइल नंबर डालना है.
Dr. Kavita, Dr. Akila and Dr. Archana.
Thanks to Kahoot, we guys are becoming tech savvy. No, we didn't know about this nice.
Dr. Neha is asking how to enter with number.
Change number. Huh?
And Dr. Archana is asking difficult to change name to number.
Um,
So can we go ahead with the name only?
Later.
Yeah, it will be difficult for. Okay, we'll.
I think they have all done it.
Okay, great. So we have 18 people
18
in now.
participants, yeah. Can we start?
I think we can wait for half a minute, 1 minute more, if somebody
Okay.
else might be trying to come in.
No, they've already
Okay, we are
logged it. It's
starting.
starting it.
Okay, great.
So great. So this is the first question. All are associated with ultrasound findings of endometriosis except whirlpool sign, ground glass appearance, sliding sign negative, and site-specific tenderness. So 14 of the students have correct answer. Okay. Next. Fine. So according to 2023 International Consensus Guideline, all are true about the ultrasound criteria for diagnosis of PCOS in adults, except follicular number per ovary is more than equal to 20 in at least one ovary. Follicle number per section is more than equal to 10 in at least one ovary. Ovarian volume more than 10 ml, or FNPO should not include follicles more than 7 mm in size. Okay, 15 students have answered correctly. Okay, nice. So when is an ultrasound diagnosis for PCO morphology advised for adolescents? 2 years after menarche, 4 years after menarche, 8 years after menarche, or as soon as diagnosis is suspected? So most of us studied the guidelines. Okay, next question. The correct way of measuring the endometrial thickness is, this is a pink line, blue line, white line, or none of the above. Yes, this is the white line, outer to outer. The following parameters measured in Applebaum scoring, except endometrial layering, myometrial contractions, uterocervical length, uterine artery Doppler flow. Correct. This is uterocervical length is not included in the Applebaum scoring. Following are ultrasound appearance features of adenomyosis, except Swiss cheese appearance, salt and pepper appearance, symmetrical wall thickening, and a Venetian blind sign. Yes, it's the asymmetrical wall thickening in the adenomyosis. So classical banana sign in ultrasound uterus is seen in bicornuate uterus, diadelphous uterus, unicornuate uterus, or an arcuate uterus. Correct. Unicornuate uterus. So ultrasound features of intrauterine adhesions, that is the Asherman syndrome, include disruption to the endometrial myometrial junction, hyperechoic bands traversing the endometrial cavity, presence of skip lesions, reduced endometrial thickness. Yes, all are the features of Asherman syndrome. So during ovarian stimulation, a follicle with irregular margins and a central vascularity is the most consistent with dominant pre-ovulatory follicle, simple follicular cyst, luteinized unruptured follicle, or endometrioma. Yeah, luteinized unruptured follicle. So in IVF cycles, a cystic ovarian structure with internal echoes and absent peripheral flow on Doppler most likely represents corpus luteum, luteinized unruptured follicle, functional follicle, and a hemorrhagic cyst. Internal echoes and absent peripheral flow on Doppler. Correct answer is hemorrhagic cyst. Nice. So during mid-luteal phase assessment, post-embryo transfer, what Doppler feature suggests good corpus luteal function? Absent corpus luteal flow, peripheral ring of fire with low RI, central hyperechoic area, or a peripheral ring of fire with high RI. Yes, a peripheral ring of fire with a low RI is a good corpus luteal function. Fine. Which Doppler finding of the endometrium is associated with a higher implantation potential? High PI, no subendometrial flow, subendometrial blood flow reaching inner 1 to 2 millimeter of endometrium, or only basal layer perfusion. Most of them have answered correctly. Fine. This is the subendometrial blood flow reaching inner 1 to 2 mm of endometrium. This was easy answer. So in 3D ultrasound, which measurement gives the most accurate assessment of endometrial receptivity? Endometrial pattern, endometrial volume, endometrial anterior posterior thickness, or uterine artery RI. Dr. Bharti ma'am also mentioned about it. Yes, endometrial volume. In advanced folliculogenesis assessment, what Doppler feature best correlates with fertilization potential? Follicular size more than 14 mm, central intrafollicular vascularity, peripheral circumference blood flow is more than or equal to 75%, or RI is more than 0.6. Yeah, this is the peripheral circumferential blood flow is more than 75%, as told by Dr. Ritu ma'am in our lecture. So which 3D ultrasound finding best predicts the intracavitary distortion in a fibroid uterus? Uterine volume more than 100 ml, junctional zone interruption, endometrial contour deviation, fibroid hypoechogenicity. Yes, endometrial contour deviation is the correct answer. Okay. What ultrasound sign in luteal phase indicates ovulation has occurred? Persistent fluid-filled follicle, collapsed follicular wall with internal echoes, increasing follicular size, no vascularity. Yes, collapsed follicular wall with internal echoes. This was an easy question, I think. The next one. In a patient with suspected chronic endometritis, which ultrasound finding is most supportive? Hyperechoic endometrium, endometrial thickness more than 14 mm, focal hypoic areas and an interrupted endometrial myometrial junction, or cystic follicles. Suspected chronic endometritis. Yes, for focal hypoic areas and an interrupted endometrial myometrial junction is the correct answer. Next. Next, please. What does a PI more than 3 in a uterine artery during the mid-luteal phase post-embryo transfer suggest? Adequate endometrial perfusion, corpus luteal insufficiency, non-receptive endometrium, and a high implantation probability. This has been told again in by Dr. Ritu ma'am lecture. It's non-receptive endometrium is the correct answer. Next, please. Fine. Next. Which ultrasound feature help differentiate a fibroid from an adenomyoma? Presence of shadowing, poorly defined margins, central vascularity on color Doppler, poorly defined margins. Fibroid from an adenomyoma. Presence of shadowing. That is there in the fibroid. Next, please. Okay, so the last question. Which of the following ultrasound features raises suspicion of leiomyosarcoma rather than a benign fibroid? Rapid growth, irregular margins, central vascularity, all of the above. Leiomyosarcoma. Yes, all of the above are features of leiomyosarcoma. Next. So what are the results? So here we are finished with the Kahoot quiz.
Wow.
Congratulations to our winners.
I would request the winners to please put in their names and mobile numbers and their rank in the chat box so that we can be mailing your e-certificates to you as soon as possible. All the 3 winners, please put your names with your ranks, with your mobile number in the chat box.
Names, mobile numbers, and mail ID, numbers, and
Rank. The rank.
names. Rank.
Parul, you came up with such interesting quiz questions. I wonder where you get them from.
I think they are easy for them. Most of the questions are easy for them.
No, they're not really easy, but they are very practical. Yes.
Yeah.
And this time, if you saw them, Dr. Parul,
Yes.
Most of them got them because 17 out of 20, 17 of 20, 16 out of 20. It's a very close match.
Yeah.
So yeah, the speed really, really mattered.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So, uh,
Dr. Niharika Gupta, I think, is a frequent user of our
yeah, Kahoot.
IFS quiz. And
Yeah,
she always win,
yeah,
either first or second or third.
yes, that's very nice.
Yeah.
So,
So,
Parul, will you please take a click of the screen
Yeah.
with the leaderboard and also another click of the winners' emails and names?
Niharika, you didn't put in your number and mail, Niharika.
Dr.
I know
Sana
Dr.
Khan,
Parul complimented, but I don't think she has the number offhand.
Dr. Rakhi, and Dr. Niharika, please share yours also.
Yeah, Rakis is there in the chat box. Sana is
Yeah.
there. Niharika also, if she shares
Niharika.
her rank. Uh,
Farah must be having a number.
okay. Okay, yeah.
But it's better you please share it.
Yeah. So I always feel one thing that we should be doing is all youngsters, you should learn to do your own ultrasound and not rely on someone else doing it. And even though, like every day after doing ultrasound for so many years, I still come across surprises.
Yes.
So whatever we don't understand or have a question, if you go back and read it, then you will realize that's how it grows. Mm,
Yeah, Dr. Padmaja, I also want to add this thing only. Ultrasound is very important. You should do your ultrasound yourself only. And sometimes you get a surprise of a polyp in a mid follicle, mid phase, mid
yeah.
cycle. When
Mm,
you're about to do a IUI, you find two or three polyps at that time.
yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah.
I want to answer a query which one of the girls has posted on my WhatsApp. There's a query about the winners of the Genius Junction. So let me clarify right away that we shall be inviting, we have had about, this is the eighth Genius Junction, and we'll be having two more. So out of those 10 Genius Junctions, we'll be pulling out the girls or boys who have got first, second, and third ranks. And then these three rankers of all the 10 Genius Junction episodes would be contesting in the Genius Junction finals, and that would be held in November. So the person who wins, the top scorers, the two top scorers of the finals, would be moving on to the Fertivision semifinals. Am I understandable? Do you have any doubts on that?
um,
I'll say it again that this is the eighth Genius Junction episode. We shall be having two more. So that makes 10 Genius Junction episodes. So from each episode, we'll be taking out the first, second, and third ranker. So that means 10 into 3, 30 people. But practically, there are some repeat rankers. So it may not be 30, it may be maybe 21, 22, 25, whatever number. So these people would battle it out in the Genius Junction finale. So Genius Junction finale is going to be held online in the month of November. So two of these people, the two top rankers of the Genius Junction finale, would go on to the Fertivision semi-final, which is going to be held on the 12th of December at Gurugram near Delhi during Fertivision. If there's
so the
any doubt whatsoever, I think most of you have my number. You can DM me and I'll be happy to answer.
so the next one is on Law and ART on 18th September. Right, Dr. Manjusha?
Yeah.
We'll see all. So this November one is not open to everyone. It is only open to.
Yeah. So we'll be sharing the Kahoot links only to those people who are winners of the earlier quizzes. But Padmaja, I'll get in touch with the IT team. Maybe they can allow all of us or as many of us want to be a part of the event, but only those 30 people join the Kahoot. Is that feasible, Himanshu? we'll have to work it out.
Yeah,
We'll
we
have
will
to
work
work it out. We'll have to think that
Yes,
because
ma'am.
people not only do they enjoy the lecture, they keep waiting for the quiz also. That's
Yeah.
what we see the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
Neha had a question that will that be offline? The Fertivision quiz is of course offline. The Fertivision quiz will be in Gurgaon.
yes.
The last online quiz would be the Genius Junction finale in November, the third Thursday of November. Does that answer you, Neha? Yeah. Over to you, Padmaja.
So for all those who haven't, I think next time, Dr. Manjusha, at the beginning of the series only, we will tell them who all are entering for the first time, download your Kahoot so that there is no
Yeah.
confusion.
No
That
hiccup.
we will announce in the beginning so that those who haven't will download it by the end of the lecture series. Okay.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, that we should do that. And I think we've had a very nice interaction. You learned a lot of practical tips. And as usual, Dr. Parul does a wonderful job about getting us nice questions. And Dr. Manjusha is always there encouraging the youngsters to come forward. And this is what we look forward at IFS, more participation, active interaction, and all of us learn together. So bye-bye, have a good evening, and see you all on 18th September, where we have it on law and ART. And that is one of the that's always a burning topic. So you
And
need
Dr. Sajjad would be taking the questions, the quiz.
yes.
Dr. Sajjad, sir, you have to come. You have to be grilling these girls in the next quiz session.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Okay, thank
We'll
you.
call it. Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you so much.
Good night.
And
Bye.
thank you, Himanshu, for putting up a seamless platform for us.
Yes.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
thank you, Parul. Thank you, Parul.
Thank you.
Padmaja.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, girls. Bye.